that with dropping the King files to distract people from not getting the Epstein files. You see here a statement from Dr. King's family on these released records. Let me read some of what his family had to say about these files being released. And I said this before, and back when he first said he's going to release these files. When we read this stuff, you need to read it in context that these were people that hated this man, and they were part of the agencies in the U.S. government. They really shouldn't be believed. Most of the stuff they're saying can't be believed. I'm not saying none of it is true, but we got to look at everything with a grain of salt. So this is a statement from Martin Luther King III and Dr. Patrice A. King on the release of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination files. We recognize that the release of documents concerning the assassination of our father, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., has been a subject of interest, captivating public curiosity for decades. As the children of Dr. King and Miss Coretta Scott King, his tragic death has been an intense personal grief, as a devastating loss for his wife, children, and the grandchildren he never met. An absence our father has endured for over 57 years. We ask those who engage with the release of these files do so with empathy, restraint, and respect for our family's continuing grief. The release of these files must be viewed within the full historical context. During our father's lifetime, he was relentlessly targeted by an invasive, predatory, and deeply disturbing disinformation and surveillance campaign orchestrated by J. Edgar Hoover. Through the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the intent of the government's COINTELPRO campaign was not only to monitor, but discredit, dismantle, and destroy Dr. King's reputation in the broader American civil rights movement. These actions were not only invasions of property, but intentional assaults on the truth, undermining the dignity, freedoms, and private citizens who fought for justice designed to neutralize those who dared to challenge the status quo. In 1999, our family filed a wrongful death civil lawsuit in Shelby County, Tennessee. The jury unanimously concluded that our father was the victim of a conspiracy involving Lloyd George and unnamed co-conspirators, including government agency as part of the wider scheme. The verdict also affirmed that someone other than James Earl Ray was the shooter, and that Mr. Ray was a setup to take the blame. Our family views that verdict as an affirmation that our long-held beliefs. As we review the newly released files, we will assess whether they offer additional insights beyond the findings our family has already accepted. And he went on to say other things. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Let's get to it. Let's go through some of the things that are said to be in the files. I'm going to run through this and then we're going to get to the last tab. Let me play this right quick.
All right, so I don't know if you guys have seen this or not, but because Trump is upset about the Epstein files leaking, he has released the MLK files. And something I think you might want to see in here is, according to these files, Dr. King was planning the Washington Spring Project in the spring of 1968, where he was going to be demanding that Congress enacted $20 billion per year. That's $185 billion a year in 2025 in anti-poverty programs for the next 10 years. So that would have been $200 billion, close to $2 trillion in what would have been reparations in 1968. He planned massive protests nationwide. They were going to shut down major cities. It was going to bring together the anti-war movement, the culmination of the civil rights movement. And he was shot and killed in 1968. Getting the idea that the $20 billion a year in reparations might have had a bigger part in the story than what they told you in grade school.
Well, we all know the infamous interview he did where he said he felt like he was leading his people into a burning house, and he began to redirect some of his work towards other things. So along with that, the allegations that were already kind of public, written in books that were associated with Martin Luther King Jr. were finally put out in the files. Let me read some of this. All right. With the funds, this is in the files. With the funds that he had received from Ford Foundation, King held the first of two workshops in Miami, Florida, in February 1968 to train Negro ministers in urban leadership. One Negro minister in attendance later expressed his disgust with the behind-the-scenes drinking, fornication, and homosexuality that went on at the conference. Several Negro and white prostitutes were brought in from the Miami area. An all-night sex orgy was held with these prostitutes and some of the delegates in attendance. One room had a large table in which it was filled with whiskey, and two Negro prostitutes were paid $50 to put on a sex show for the entertainment of guests. A variety of sex acts deviating from the normal were observed. The activity is not new to King and his associates. As early as January 1964, King engaged in another two-day drunken sex orgy in Washington, D.C. Many of those present engaged in sexual acts, natural as well as unnatural, for the entertainment of onlookers. When one of the females shot away from engaging in an unnatural act, King and other of the male present discussed how she was to be taught and initiated in this respect. Throughout the ensuing years and until this date, King was continued to carry on his sexual aberrations secretly while holding himself in the public view as a moral leader of religious conviction. Honorable says one person accounting of this happening. Yeah, that's why it's BS. Because the man who said this happened also is the same man that said that the U.S. government had no material benefit, as the guy said, in killing Malcolm X either. So yeah, I'm gonna read this a little bit. It was learned on February 1968 from a very responsible Los Angeles individual in a position to know that King has been living an illicit love affair with the wife of a prominent Negro dentist in Los Angeles, California, since 1962. He believed King's father, the baby girl born with this woman, insomuch as her husband is allegedly sterile. The child resembles King to a great degree, and King contributes to the support of the child. He calls this woman every Wednesday and frequently meets her in various cities throughout the country. The individual who reported this is himself a prominent Negro who is related to by law to King's mistress. He advised he has known King since 1960 and refers to him as a hypocrite. He also reported that King is having illicit love affairs with three other women, one of whom is Joan Baez, the nationally known folk singer. The prominent Negro who first the information said he was appalled that a man of King's low character could cause such a trouble for both Negroes and the government. Causing trouble. As can be seen from above, it is a fact that King not only regularly indulges in adulterous acts, but enjoys an abnormal by engaging in group sexual orgies. These facts about the Nobel Prize winner make his remarks seem hold on, sorry. All right, I'm back. Alma says, where are all these black feminist man haters doing all the snitching, exposing? Yeah, that's how I know it's that's not what it is. Incongruous. Hold on, let me go back. When he replied after winning this cherished award, history has thrust me into this position. It would both be immoral and a sign of ingratitude if I did not face my moral responsibility to do what I can in the civil rights struggle. Along with this, he's accused of watching a woman get gang raped. What up, Mark? He was accused of watching a woman get gang raped while laughing. They try to make him very maniacal in these stories. And somebody put this out. The actual crucially important because maybe the sheer stupidity of this will finally make people realize that the FBI pushed agenda that MLK was a serial cheater. It's just it's bullshit as whatever the other nonsense. And Q Anthony Ali, he posted this. He said both the MLK was a cheater myth and the MLK participated in rape parties myth was laundered by the FBI through some historian, David Garrow. I looked him up, Caucasian man, who also famously in the FBI NYPD had no material interest in seeing Malcolm X dead. This is who people on Twitter listen to. So his Martin Luther King biography was a classic. His latest King piece is causing a fervor. David Garrow found FBI documents alleging King stood by during a rape, but some scholars question whether it's trustworthy records created as part of a smear campaign. So a man called himself he's a historian, saw documents from the FBI saying that saying that Martin Luther King did this. And we're supposed to believe it. The same people who were pushing that COINTELPRO thing. Like, what are we doing? That's why I said months ago, like, some of this stuff is going to be truth, but a good chunk of this stuff is going to be a smear campaign to destroy his image and legacy. Honorable says, I always throw in a black woman being assaulted for a little razzle-dazzle to every story. Yeah. And funny enough, that's part of historically what whenever you have a certain racial conflict, especially when you talk about something like what happened with slavery or when there's a sort of war going on between two different societies, one of the first things you do when it comes to colonialism is you convince the people you're attacking, you convince their women to go against their men. You have to find a way to convince the women that their men are actually holding them captive, that they are slaves to their men, that they are being harmed, physically being killed and violent towards by their own men, so they'll be more open to spread the same agendas against them as you will, which we've seen in America. No, I'm just being honest. A lot of the feminist talking points is just that. They don't even really talk about racial dynamics. They talk about intra-racial things more often than anything, because they have been convinced that black men are just as much of a threat to the black community as men outside of the race. So, it makes sense to the FBI with, hey, Dr. King, he was raping black women, so that black women be more willing to, throw dirt on his name now. Honestly, it seems that black men were the ones convicted in our narrative, so stop it. Okay. The truth is the truth. History says it. Philosophy, history, the war tactics say this is what you do. If you get the women to despise their man or go against their man at any level, it's much easier to overcome them. MLK was also mentioned by name in a memo from the FBI's anti-black COINTELPRO dated March 4th, 1968, exactly 1 month before he was assassinated. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, the author of the memo, was reputed for his use of disinformation and sexual blackmail. This one is to Hoover. From a special agent in charge of the San Francisco field office, it reveals how bureau agents projected their own racial sexual delusions and fantasies onto black activists, and how these delusions shaped their counterintelligence strategies. Which goes along with the idea that the black brute that all black men do is want to rape white women, and in this case, black women, sexual deviant. So, Alma says, we need to study the unspoken relationship with black men and white supremacy. Give me example of going against black men. Marriage rates, please. one day we should. I'm not gonna do that today. I will say this though. I do wish because marriage rates, I don't know I guess you brought it up because you're talking about interracial dating. I think we should stop using marriage rates to try and prove loyalty. I think, yeah, I think we really should stop using marriage rates to prove loyalty to the community. And by the way, you can marry within your race, and you be just a negative. If you're a black man who marry a black woman, but all you do is build platforms to disrespect and dismiss black women as the worst of the worst, and say, "But I got a good one." You're no better than the person that dated interracially. Like, it's not that much of a difference. But yeah. So obviously, what we knew was going to be in the files, as far as right now, because it's thousands of pages. People have not read all of them. Chris has anti-Daniels. Proof. Perfect. That's a perfect example. Anti-Daniels. He's married to a so-called black woman, but listen to his platform, what he says about black people and black women in particular. You wouldn't say that he's a positive voice for the black community or black women. So, Alma says we can use black men debt as well to show that women groups benefit from them the most. Talking about marriage rates because of divorces and stuff, or first off, in every demographic, the more money that men build in their career, the more resources they gain, they're more likely to marry within their race. Because when you talk about a man with a lot of resources, you're talking about either a man who went to college, long term, is in a career, not just a job, and he had to put extreme hours into that field to get the resources he's gained. Very early in that person's life, they start thinking about legacy. That's regardless of what race, black, white, Asian. When you're a billionaire, you think about legacy and who you're leaving your kids to, and there's somewhat of a ethnic image you're thinking about. All those men are more likely to marry within their own race. All of them. The more they go up the financial ladder, the more likely they are to marry within their race. But people keep pointing at athletes who did not get their money the same way as a dude who makes $300, $400K a year because he's an entrepreneur that runs a business. When you compare the athlete who is good at sports, went to college only because he had to, and then went to a college that was a majority of another race, and then by the time he get to the league, that's all he's known as white people, not just the women, the man, his coach, the faculty at his schooling, whether it's high school or college. He's been embraced and constantly, let's be honest, his ass kissed by white people his whole life since he was 13 years old. By the time he's 21, 22, that's what it is. So you shouldn't compare that dude, who, by the way, still marry black majority of the time, over 80%. You can't compare that dude to the dude who's an entrepreneur who built his business, who went to college and all this stuff. Because a lot of those dudes, like I said, they start thinking about legacy a lot sooner than the other one. The new face of the NBA doesn't agree with that statement. You talking about the mixed dudes? Well, what's his name? Anthony Edwards could be the face of the NBA. I'm gonna say it's not just athletes; it's across many industries. Isn't one of the billionaires with the lady who did pet porn? Pet porn? Who you talking about? You talking about? Well, you're not talking about the same person. I don't know who that is. You're talking about. What's his name? The one we talked about a few years ago because he was suing the TV network or Comcast or something. What's his name? The one who tried to buy BET. He's married to a white woman, although he talk all this pro-black stuff and black ownership and stuff. But that's not the norm. That's the point. Like, if you go on your timeline, and I'm gonna move on from this in a second. When you go on your timeline and the NBA or ESPN or any one of these sporting pages, whenever they post a athlete who just got married or in a new relationship, they always post the black dude who's with the non-black woman. But when a dude who steps out with his black girlfriend or black wife, they don't post it. What's the wide receiver that just popped out with his girl? Him and his homie just popped out with a girl. 2 wide receivers just popped out with a girl, And it wasn't ESPN or Fox Sports that posted the picture of him at the award show with his girl. It was a regular fan that posted it. So Adam said, not the Weather Channel, the other dude. Okay. Mark said, isn't the new face of the NBA Canadian? Oh, you talking about Shai Alexander? He Canadian. And once again, he's a person who probably all his life, since he was 13 years old, has been getting his ass kissed by white people. His coaches in high school, his coaches in his coach at what school he go to? He didn't go to Kentucky. I forgot where he went. You know, most of the mentors, when you look up the whole idea of mentors, most of them, when you're talking about the billionaires or the dudes who are entrepreneurs and building their resources, they mentor black boys, and a lot of them have black wives. So the timeline will show that a lot of effort from black American men to make funny looking mixed kids for the last 30 plus years. All right. I ain't gonna lie, the NBA. A lot of the former NBA players' sons are in the NBA now. And like 95% of them mix. It's crazy. I ain't gonna lie, it's kind of crazy. Speaking of mentors, though.